Maybe some of you are familiar with me, some of you may not know me. But if you know me, you know that the role I play in this community is as a pastor. But very often when I meet friends and friends introduce friends to me, and we kind of have a social setting and we're just sitting down, most of the time I dress very simply. And so we'll have interactions, we'll talk, and somewhere along the way, whoever I meet for the first time or in a new setting, then end up discovering that I'm a pastor. And the moment they discover I'm a pastor, things change quite drastically. Straight away, I see people get very uncomfortable. They don't know what to do, how to speak, and suddenly, they become a bit more conscious of the words that they are saying. There was one situation when a friend was sitting down, we're having a meal, and then the friend said, "Oh, yeah, this is Rhordan," and then so we're talking, and then we're just sort of interacting. And then the friend said, "Yeah, he's my pastor." And immediately, her friend turned around and then she felt the need to bow a little, which I thought was a bit strange, and then said, "Should I call you father?" So I was like, please don't. But it's very often when I interact with people, there's this awkwardness. So there's another situation. I was with some friends, and I was introduced to someone, and it was sort of this interaction. And as we were talking, it came up, "Oh, Rhordan is a pastor." And then I saw the look in this person's eyes. I better talk about something religious. I better talk about something spiritual. And then he said, "Oh, yeah, actually, religion, very good. Good that you have a religion. I also maybe, sometimes also quite religious. Because, it's good, we all have religion, then we all, be good people. Because after all, right, all religions are quite good, right? All equally quite good." As we were talking, I started to discover, we didn't have a deep conversation then, but I began to discover that this idea that religion is good and all religion is the same is quite a common way of thinking, quite a common way of questioning or understanding our world around us. It really doesn't matter what religion you believe in. It doesn't matter what religion you ascribe to, because they're all sort of the same. They just invite us to live a good life, and they teach us to be moral people, and they call us to do good and serve the poor and help those less fortunate than ourselves. And so the question today is this: are all religions equally good? Are all religions equally meaningful? Are they all the same? A way to think of this question is to consider this picture, that there is a mountain and God is at the top of this mountain. And so some religions have one path, another religion has another path, and a third way of belief has a third path. And it doesn't matter what the paths are, they're different, but they all lead us to the same one God. That's the way very many people think about religion, think about faith these days. In fact, even in Singapore, and Christians in Singapore have a thinking like this. In a Pew survey that was done to Southeast Asia, this was the finding of Singaporean Christians. Almost half of Christians in Singapore believe other religions can be true. And so it doesn't matter what you believe. You ascribe to your type of faith. I'll ascribe to my type of faith. In fact, what this survey also discovered is that some Christians are praying to other gods. So they believe they're Christians, they come to church, they participate in a Christian community, but they're praying to a variety of different gods. And so even 6% of Christians don't even pray to Jesus, but they think of themselves as Christians. Now, I'm not sure what this survey does for you. Some of you are like, "Walao, how can?" Some of you are like, "Okay, so it really doesn't matter where we are. But as we think through this, and that's what I hope today will invite us to do, is to reflect and understand why we think these ways, and is it true? Does it matter? Do all roads lead to the same God? And if all roads lead to the same God, then so be it. But if all roads don't lead to the same God, then what does that mean for us? Another way to ask the question is this: is Christianity too narrow? because it seems that a lot of other faiths and other belief systems are a lot more accepting. Yeah, you can come, you can believe, you can do what you like. But Christianity seems to say, no, there's just this one way. There's this only way in which one is saved. Sometimes people feel this is a little arrogant. What makes Christianity believe that it is the right thing and everybody else is wrong? So is Christianity too narrow? It's a question many people ask. And how I know this is because the series is called The 6 Most Googled Questions About Christianity. And so people who may not be in church are asking the internet these types of questions. A way to think about this as well is to consider the parable of the blind men and the elephant. So there is an elephant and there are 3 blind men. One man comes up to the elephant and starts to feel the front of the elephant and says, I know what an elephant is like. An elephant is like a snake. It is long and it moves and it's thin in that. And another person comes and another blind man comes and says, let me try and feel my way here. And I'm feeling the legs of an elephant and says, no, that's not what an elephant is like. An elephant is like a tree trunk. It's strong and it's sturdy. It cannot be like a snake. It has to be like a tree trunk because this is my experience of what an elephant is. The third blind man comes forward and starts to touch the body of the elephant and says, neither of you are right. The elephant is like a wall. It is hard and it is solid. And each of them then end up arguing. In this parable, the suggestion is this, that only nobody has the full picture. Each religion, each belief system has some revelation, has some understanding of it, and therefore it really doesn't matter what you believe, because when we put it all together, then we will see and understand this to be true. Many people may not know how to articulate it, but many people think this way. So today we want to unpack this and say, is this the right way to think about these questions? Is Christianity too narrow? Do all roads lead to the same God? You know, questions are strange things. When you have young children, they're very cute, and then they start speaking, and they're not so cute anymore. And then they start asking questions. At about 4 or 5 years old, I read one research. I have no personal experience in this. My house is very quiet. But I've read a research that a child, 4 or 5 year old, can ask about 400 questions a day. And all the parents go, amen. Right? And so we, from a very young age, learn to ask questions. But somehow in the Christian world, as we grow up, these questions end up leading us to places perhaps where we think we're doubtful. And then we are told or we're thought, maybe we shouldn't have these questions. We should just believe. And so as we continue with this series, it's really a series about questions. And I want to encourage maybe 3 groups of people who are listening to this message today and hopefully for the next 2 weeks as well. I want to speak to you. Perhaps you are here and you're watching online and you don't have faith in Jesus. And you don't understand Christianity, and someone invited you to come. We love that you are here. And I'm just praying that I will be helpful to help you think a little around this. You will sorely discover the lack of my ability to communicate effectively, but I pray you won't let my limitations limit what God can speak to you about. But if you're here and you don't know God, and you've been asking some of these questions, you're trying to search and figure out, is there a God? And if there is a God, who is this God? What does it mean to be a Christian? Then I welcome you to these questions. But there's a second group of people, and you've been a Christian. You may perhaps grew up in church. You've been exposed to Christianity. You know how to worship the Lord. You sang the songs. But you also have questions. And you sometimes wonder, is there something wrong with me? Because my friends seem to be able to just believe. But I have all these questions. Why this? Why that? How come like this? How come like that? And you don't know what to do with these questions. Can I tell you, my heart goes out to you if you're this group of people? Really, because I was you. And in many ways, I still feel I am you. And sometimes it can feel that if you believe and you know you're a Christian and you trust God, but if you have questions, it means you don't have faith. And I came to say that's not true. So if you're here today and you've got questions and you still believe, I'm going to encourage you to keep staying in the house of God, keep staying in the community, and keep asking the questions. Because God is not afraid of questions. God is, in fact, the Old Testament says that God is the God who says, come, let us reason together. And so God invites us to think things through. And in our context especially, being a church that recognizes the move of the Holy Spirit, if you're a person who says, I got to make sense of this, you might wonder, if I have to make sense of it, does it mean I'm not trusting God? I don't think that that's the case. Your heart can be in the right place. You can desire the move of the Spirit. You can hunger for the things of God, but you can also say, I want to know if this makes sense. And so I pray through this series that you will, if at all, be encouraged, that you can bring your questions to the Lord. And then there's a third group, and you don't have an issue with any of these questions. Your faith is secure. You've settled it. Why ask this type of question? I believe God. I know He's real. I know where I'm going. I know what I need to do. Let's get on with it. And I love you for that. But perhaps there will be people in your world who may have these questions. Perhaps your neighbors might have these questions. Your colleagues might have these questions. Your friends or family members might have these questions. When we did the first part of this series, after part 1, I was talking to someone, and this person came to me and said, wow, the series is very good. My friend and I had the same question. I said, great. You can go and speak to this person. Said, no. I showed him the YouTube. That's not the hope. The hope, even though this is going to be on YouTube, is not for you to show this person a YouTube clip, but you know how to share with someone as well. So if you've settled this in your heart and you're here, I'm going to invite you, would you be the people who lean in the most? Perhaps take the most notes, because God is going to use you to be His mouthpiece, to speak to people around you about some of these questions. So the series is called The 6 Most Googled Questions About Christianity. We did 3 questions in the early part of the year, and we're doing 3 right now. And if you've missed the first 3, you can go to our YouTube channel and kind of catch up with us there as well. So this is part 4. As we continue this time, would you just join me in prayer that we are reminded at the end of the day, it's not Rhordan's ability, it's the Holy Spirit who is our teacher, and that He would give us understanding. So let's pray. Oh God, we are so grateful for the reality of the Spirit of God. And Holy Spirit, we welcome you to open our eyes that we may see and behold you, that we may know you. And Lord, we know that it's not my words, but we know it is your revelation that helps us make the connection to know of your loving kindness towards us. So Holy Spirit, do what only you can do, and help me in what I need to do in partnering with you. And Lord, I pray every person who listens will receive an anointing, that the soil of their heart is ready to receive the seed of your word, that it will produce fruit in our lives. And all who agreed would say, Amen. One word can describe the issue we're trying to think about today, and that's the word exclusivity. And people sometimes will say Christianity is too exclusive. There's only one way, you only have the answer, everybody else is wrong. It is too exclusive. And the reason why we have sometimes difficulty with this idea of exclusivity is because we grow up in a world that values tolerance. And so we're told to tolerate one another. That's the path in which we're going to be at peace. If we cannot tolerate one another, if we cannot get along, then we're not going to have peace. And therefore, sometimes people may say Christianity is bad for society. And religion even is bad for society because it results in people saying, no, I've got one truth. It is like a tree trunk. You're saying, no, it's like a snake. No, it's like a wall. And so we end up fighting over this. In an interview with a 20-something-year-old on the streets of New York City, this is what a young man said about religion. Religious exclusivity is not just narrow, it's dangerous. Religion has led to untold strife, division, and conflict. It may be the greatest enemy of peace in the world. If Christians continue to insist that they have the truth, and if other religions do this as well, the world will never know peace. And so this is sometimes how people who may not have a Christian interaction or upbringing think. People in your neighborhoods, people in our streets may be thinking these ways. And so not too long ago, you may have seen a bumper sticker that may look like this, which is the idea that actually all religions are the same. We have to learn to coexist. And so they developed these artistic ways of expressing, doesn't matter what you believe, we coexist, we tolerate one another, we come together. In the 70s, there was a songwriter and his wife who wrote words that seemed to echo this sentiment. John Lennon wrote a song called Imagine, and the words say this: imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us, above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no countries, it isn't hard to do, nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will be as one. Many of you know the song. We've sung the song. And there is a wonderful sentiment of this idea of being one. And the only way we can be one is if we get rid of religion. The only way we can come together and have peace is if we stop talking about heaven and hell. And then we can come together. And from the 70s, this thinking has echoed down the ages. And today, many people buy into this idea that all roads lead to the same God. So the question, is Christianity exclusive? Let's see what Jesus says. Let's see what the Bible says about the exclusivity of this particular message. Jesus answered, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If there ever is a doubt, let me clear your doubts right now. The Christian message is incredibly exclusive. Unashamedly exclusive. It is the way, the truth, and the life. Jesus is the only way we have access to God the Father. The problem in this statement that Jesus gives us is this small word, the. The word the is considered a definite article. And the definite article is pointing not to a generalization, but to a specific oneness. And so the is the problem. And so people don't have an issue if we change the and we say that Jesus said he is a way, that he's a truth, and he is a life. In fact, if you go to people and you say, actually, I believe in Jesus, and Jesus is my way, Jesus is my truth, Jesus is my life, people don't have a problem with that. You can believe Jesus, you can trust that he is your way, and you can do you, I will do me. But Jesus doesn't say any of these. He says he is the way, the truth, and the life. There's a difference here, because if I said, Liverpool is a great team in the English Premier League versus Liverpool is the team in the English Premier League. I rest my case. If I say that something is a good thing versus it is the good thing, there is a difference. And the difference means this: it's not just one of many, it is the one and only. And so when Jesus was teaching us and showing us about his reality, he was saying that there aren't alternatives. There is only one way. There is only one truth. There is only one path that gives us eternal life. And beyond that, right, if we look at the early church, when they were called to give an account of what happened, there was a healing that took place, and they had to give an account because they were arrested, and people saying, like, what was happening here? When Peter stands up to explain what was happening, he says this: salvation is found in no one else, for there is no other name under heaven given to mankind by which we must be saved. Peter completely understood the specific, exclusive message of the Christian gospel, that there is only one name in which we are saved. No other name, no other gods, no other founder, no other philosophy is going to save us. And then Paul comes along, he has this great encounter with Jesus, and then he writes to the church and he says this: for there is one God and one mediator between God and man, the man Christ Jesus. So Paul was very, very clear, as was everybody else, that there is only one way in which we know God, in which we're connected with the truth, in which we get to live out this reality. If we go further and we think of the letter that Paul writes to the church at Galatia, not only is there one way and one truth and one Christ, Paul tells us that there is only one gospel. And so he gets upset that they are teaching and thinking about a different gospel. Not that there is another one. There is only one gospel, one truth in which we can understand and which we can receive the truth of Jesus Christ. So is Christianity exclusive? Categorically, yes. Yes. But then how do we respond to people who say, but your exclusivity is the problem I have? You say that it's exclusive, but I have a problem with that, because if you are right, then everything else is wrong, and how can that be the case? I'd like us to think a little bit about it, because yes, Christianity is exclusive, but so is every other truth claim. You see, if you think about it, every truth claim is exclusive, even the truth claim that Christianity shouldn't be exclusive. Every time we say something about something, we're saying something is true and something is not true. If I persuade you and I tell you, no, you cannot say Christianity is the only way, all roads lead to the same God. Do you understand that that is also an exclusive truth? That is what I'm also saying. I've got an exclusive claim to say, no, all roads to God is correct. Your thinking is wrong. Which is exactly our problem sometimes we face when we think about Christianity. So, all truth claims need to be exclusive. It needs to be. Otherwise, you don't have truth. I'm not good with math, so I'm just going to do 1 + 1. Okay, so 1 + 1 equals 2. Now, we know this to be true because we recognize this to be an objective truth. It's not dependent on how you feel. It's not dependent on your ethnicity. It's not dependent on your age. 1 + 1 is 2. Now, if we said 1 + 1 is 2, but it also can be 3. And if you feel like it, it should be 4. If your preference is 3.3, then it should be 3.3. Then it's no longer objectively true. For instance, if I bring to you that Haagen-Dazs is the best ice cream in the world, this is an objective truth. If you're like me, you think it is. But if you're thinking right now, and the reason you're laughing is because it's not an objective truth. It's considered a subjective truth. Another way to think of it, it's that it's my preference. And it is my preference. Right? So when you think about the way we respond to the world around us right now, especially when it comes to faith, today we accept the notion that your faith is your preference, and my faith is my preference. So you do your faith, I do my faith, we tolerate each other, and there's peace in the world. But that is not what we're actually trying to do. Because if there is an objective truth to the message of Jesus, then it cannot just be like my desire for Haagen-Dazs. It must be 1 + 1 is 2. And it is true for everybody, in every culture, in every ethnicity, in every age group. So the question is not so much, is Christianity exclusive? The important question is this: is Christianity true? And if it's true, then you and I need to invite our hearts towards truth, because truth will set us free. Truth will lead us to reality as well, an actual reality of our world. Now, we're going to try and cover this question a little bit today and a lot more next week. So please come back. As we think of this, all roads lead to God. Do all religions help us reach God? Some of you believe this. The statistic tells us 50% of Christians in this country believe that really it doesn't matter which God. I have chosen the Christian God, you can choose another God. And I think this is disrespectful. It's dishonoring. And it's dishonoring to every religion. And the reason is this: because if we go back to this picture, there is a mountain, and the God on the mountain is the same God, so it doesn't matter which path. You actually haven't thought through about the other faiths as well. So consider this, the God that we put on this mountain, if it's the same God, then maybe different parts can lead to this God. But if they're different gods, then they cannot all be true. So consider a few things. Buddhism says that there is no God. The Buddhist faith doesn't have the belief in a supreme God. Hinduism says there are many gods. Christianity, Islam, and Judaism says there is one God. So I know you're bright, thinking, smart Singaporeans. Let me ask you this. Can all these three be the same at the same time? No. If the God on this mountain is different, then it cannot be that the path doesn't matter because you're going to end up on the same mountain, because there are different understandings and revelations of this idea of God as well. Now, you take the three faiths of Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, and we have other problems here. The first issue is this. Islam says there is one God and Muhammad is his prophet. Judaism says there is one God and Israel are his people. Christianity says there is one God and Jesus is his son. At their core, they are fundamentally different. They're not the same. They don't have different images that are just going to paint the one same picture. And we can go further and further in and discover actually they're all significantly different. In Islam, with regards to Jesus, Jesus didn't die. With Judaism, Jesus didn't rise. With Christianity, we believe he both died and rose again. They cannot all be the same at the same time. You can think of the concepts of heaven. They each have different understandings of heaven. You can think of the concepts of hell and sin, and they each have different. You think of the authority, they're each different. My point is simple. They're actually not the same. So to say that every religion is going to lead you to the same God means we haven't thought through it sufficiently. They cannot all be the same. There is a philosophical, logical truth called the law of non-contradiction, meaning it cannot be all of this true at the same time. If I say something is A, it cannot be not A at the same time. That's the law of non-contradiction, meaning they all cannot exist at the same time. So let's go back to the elephant illustration. Two problems with it. Number one, we notice in the story how many blind people were there? 3, very good. Turn to someone next to you and say 3. But do you realize that there's a fourth person in this parable? The fourth person is a person who is not mentioned, but is needed to be in the story for the story to exist. It is the person who is not blind. And it's the person who can see that there is a full elephant. If there is somebody in the story who's not blind, who can see the full elephant, then this person is the proudful person. Because this person is saying all your religions only see in part. So the very person who brings the argument to you and says, actually it doesn't matter, you have one revelation, you have one revelation, you have one revelation, they are unconsciously saying, but I know the truth. They are not blind. And suddenly they are superior to everybody else. Also not true. So these pictures somehow seem nice, but when you think it a little through, they actually don't hold too much water. There are two basic concepts or ideas of salvation. The first works very well for Singaporeans because we understand this really, really good. Think about education, right? I know some of you are like, exam just finished, still must think, end of the year, I'm supposed to go on holiday, but just think with me for a few moments. How do we get to university? Or get to JC or whatever your next thing. Or PSLE finish, right? How do you get to secondary school? You have to get good grades, and that's why everybody freaks out in this country over exams. We'll be praying for you that there'll be a freedom that will come to parents so that we don't have to freak out, right? But we freak out because my kid must do this, my kid must do that. Get the exams well so that I can get through the door to get to the school I want to get to. So if everybody understand me? Right? We understand this because we live this out in this country. But once they get to university or A-levels or secondary school, what's the next thing that needs to happen? Must study like mad lah. Because now that you got in, you have to work hard, you have to study, you must do the homework, you must learn everything, you must practice, you must do well in every test, because your merit and your performance matters. How you do in your Sec 1 exam will determine what happens in Sec 2. How you do in your Sec 2 will determine your streaming in Sec 3, if there's still such a thing as streaming. And then you go to Sec 4, then O-level, and then, so we understand this idea, right? I mean, just nod with me, yeah? Totally. I come in based on certain goodness that I have. Based on this goodness, I have to work really hard, and then hopefully I understand enough, and my merit points are good enough that I can then get to the next bit. And if my merit points are good enough, well done. You did well. You're very smart. You're very good. Your future is bright. But there is also the possibility, is there not, that you study hard, you do everything you know how to do, and you just cannot do it. And then you think, I cannot make it. I tried, I cannot make it, it is over. Now, this picture is also a picture we very often apply to salvation and to faith and to belief. The majority of religions take us through this type of a journey, that there is some way in which our goodness gets us in, and because we got in, what we need to do next is we need to live a good life. And so Islam has got the 5 pillars of what that needs to happen. Buddhism has the Eightfold Way. And so we try to work a certain way in order to do certain things in the hope that at the end of it, somebody will say, yeah, your goodness outweighs your badness, and you now can enter into some rest, enter into some next stage, enter into some nirvana as well. And we understand this. And that's why in Singapore, this feels very satisfying, because we work out our salvation. We work for our salvation. We work in order to get the merit so that we are good enough, and at the end of it, then someone, God, is going to say, well done, you worked for it. And if you've ever thought this way, you understand the challenge and the struggle of this form of thinking and this form of religion. It's this. It's you try and you try and you try, and you just cannot live up to it. You try and you try and you try, and you just cannot live up to it. And so many people walk away and say, I can't do this. It's just too hard. Now let me show you a different way, a different form of understanding faith and religion. It doesn't start with you entering in. It starts with you being already accepted. You know, when Jesus was 30 years old, he comes to the Jordan River, and he's baptized, and as he comes up, his Father, God in heaven, speaks, and people hear. And the voice says this is my Son, in whom I'm well pleased. Now you think about this, up to this point, what has Jesus done? Not much ministry. He hasn't healed anybody, hasn't raised the dead. He's possibly made some tables and chairs and done some carpentry. That's pretty much all he has done. But God says, I am well pleased with him. And that is the basis of him stepping into ministry of what he's about to do. You see, the other picture that we need to understand that's very different from the first picture is that God has already accepted us because of Jesus. Because of what Jesus has done. He has done the work. He has sat for the exam. He has borne the weight, and he has passed victoriously. And because of what he has done and his work, then the door is open. But the door is open only if we accept his grades, only if we accept what he has done. And if you and I do that and accept what he has done, we step into this door. And that's not the end. That is the beginning. The Christian story says that we are loved and accepted already because of the God that we know and serve. Jesus has done it for us, and then we enter in. But now that we enter in, this is the time we labor, and this is the time we work. So if you're a Christian and you think, okay, I believe, I die, I go to heaven, you miss this bit, because now you need to work. Now we labor, now we serve, now we do the work and the will of God. But we don't do it in our strength, we do it with the very presence of God with us. And this is where we now work it out and go on mission and demonstrate the goodness of God. Two very different pictures of what faith needs to look like. One says you've got to do things and then you are accepted. The other says it was done for you. Will you accept him? Two very different pictures. Christianity is exclusive. It cannot be the same like others because its truth claim is different. And if it is different, the question is not, is it exclusive, but is it true? Christianity is exclusive, and its claim is that everyone is invited. Do you realize how powerful this is? The promise that we have with the Christian story is that no matter who you are and what you've done, everyone is invited. Consider some of these Old Testament stories. When God picked Abraham, here's what God said. I will make you, this is one person, very specific, very exclusive. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you, and all the peoples on the earth will be blessed. God intended this blessing not to be with just Abraham, but with everybody. When you think of the temple in the Old Testament, the holiest site, many of us understand that it was God's people who came and they worshiped at the temple. But do you know that the temple also had an invitation for foreigners? And so when Solomon prayed at the dedication of the temple, he said this, when the foreigners who does not belong to your people Israel, but has come from a distance because of your name, when they come and pray towards the temple, then hear from heaven your dwelling place. Do whatever the foreigner asks of you. Do you understand what Solomon is praying here? Solomon understands that yes, God was the God of the Jewish people, but the invitation was for everybody who came. Even in the Exodus and in the stepping out, there was not just the Jews who came out, but people from that land, Egyptians and other tribes also were part of it. Because God's heart had always been inclusive with everybody. And today, Joshua in worship reminded us of this verse. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him, this is the exclusivity. You cannot have it any other way. It's through him and what he has done. You shall not perish, but have eternal life. But the invitation is to whoever believes in him. Whatever your background, whatever you've done, however sinful you think you are invited and you are welcome. Whatever your upbringing has been like. You know, maybe some of you have gone through some challenges and some difficulties and think, I cannot be accepted by God. That's a lie. I came to say that you are invited. Maybe some of you on the other extreme, you're thinking and you're doubting, you've got all these questions. Can you also come? The answer is yes. You too have been invited. And what is the instruction to the early church? The instruction is to therefore go and make disciples of all nations. God is a God who does not just have an exclusive invitation. His invitation is for everyone. You know, the Jews have a very interesting prayer that they would pray every morning. I don't know what your prayer life is like. I hope you pray every morning. Turn to someone next to you and say, you should pray every morning. You should pray every afternoon too. It's good to pray at night as well. So just pray all the time, okay? So it's good for us to have a prayer life. I'm going to give you a sample of a prayer sometimes Jews would pray. Don't pray this prayer, but this is how they would pray. Like, thank you, God, that I'm not a Gentile, a woman, or a slave. This is a prayer. Because to be a Gentile was to be outside of God's chosen people. To be a woman or a slave was to not have agency in that community, was to be of a lower level. So they would pray this. And the men, particularly would say, God, I'm so grateful that I'm not a Gentile, a woman, or a slave. You know, in Acts 16, Luke tells us a story about the early church and some of the missionary work that they did. And you may not get this, but Luke is brilliant in doing this. So let me show you his brilliance. He tells a story, and in this story, Paul is going to Philippi, and at Philippi, he comes across a slave woman, and she's demon-possessed. If you were here 2 weeks ago, we talked a little bit about this story, right? She was demon-possessed, and then she's set free, and she recognizes, who the Messiah is. And then as they were going to the river, and they were interacting there, Paul interacts with Lydia, who was a businesswoman, And then Lydia becomes a born-again believer and gets baptized in that river. And then soon after that, they get thrown into prison, and then there's this wonderful earthquake. They were singing, Paul and Silas, right, in the prison. There was this wonderful earthquake. The doors flew open, the chains flew open, and there was a Gentile Roman soldier who was there. And then he and his household get saved. Do you see what Luke has done? Luke has taken the story of a Gentile who was rejected by the Jewish people, who was considered an outcast by the Jewish people. Luke has taken a business woman. I'm pretty sure Lydia did not look like this, but this was the best icon I could find. And a slave woman. And what Luke has done is to say God has accepted the slave, the woman, and the Gentile. People have rejected them, but God has accepted them. You see, the problem with the early church was not who they excluded. The problem with the early church was who they included. Do you realize that? That these people who were excluded in society were welcomed into God's community. God's heart is always been for everybody. Everybody is invited. The Christian message is exclusive. There is no other way, but everybody is invited. When you get this today, and I'm praying that only the Holy Spirit can do this, if you get this, don't you realize surely everybody needs to know, because He's done it for us. We don't have to earn this, but everybody is welcomed. Everybody is invited. And what happens right at the end, when John gets this wonderful vision of the future, he looked, and behold, a great multitude that no one could number, from every nation, from all tribes and peoples and languages, standing before the throne. I want you to see that the Christian message is exclusive. But its exclusive claim is that everyone is invited. Everyone is invited. That is good news. It is good news for all of us. It is good news for all of humanity. You consider even the geographical movement of the church. In many other religions, you can place where that religion's center is. You can place that, the religious, emphasis, or the center of gravity for that religion is in these locations. When you think of the Christian message, it started out in the Middle East. And today, with all that's going on, there's a lot of, eyes on what's going on in the Middle East. And the early church, this Christian story begins out of this Middle East location. But it doesn't stay in the Middle East, because God always intended for this message to move. And its center also started to move. And as they moved westward. They go towards Italy and to Rome, and then the movement from there gets towards the United Kingdom and those areas. It crosses over to the Americas. And for many, many years, the center of gravity for the Christian story was America, North America, and everything that was coming out of there. But today, it's shifted. Today, if you think about, you take all the Christians in the world and you say, who is the median? What does a median Christian look like? It is not a white man from North America. Today, the median Christian is a black woman from Africa, because there are thousands and thousands and millions of men and women who have trusted in Jesus, in what many people recognize to be the global South. The center of gravity for Christianity has kept shifting. And can you see, even in the way God has done this, He is indicating to us that yes, there is still only one way in which we are saved, but God's desire is that everybody come, everybody be welcome. Christianity's exclusive claim is that everyone is invited. Second thing, and we're going to try and land with this, is that Christianity's exclusive claim invites us to go beyond just tolerating. You see, we believe that tolerating each other, differences, is what's going to keep us peaceful. Tolerating doesn't. Because tolerating is like, I cannot tahan you, but I'll just put up with you. And that's not the Christian message, right? I mean, isn't that true? Like if you've got siblings, right, your parents are upset, don't know what to say, just tolerate each other. Right? Meaning you don't like each other, you don't want to just get along. I don't care, just get along. That's what tolerate is. But we're not called to tolerate one another. And the reason is this, because if you are a believer and you're a Christian, why is it this unique message brings transformation and hope and change to the world? It's because we believe that everybody is created in the image of God. Whether they're the poorest of poor, whether they are able-bodied or disabled-bodied, whether they have smarts or no smarts, whether they have a lot of money or no money, it does not matter. Every person is created in the image of God. And if you and I are a believer, we've got to get this in our heart. Because if we see everyone the same, then it doesn't matter who is the person who treats us or mistreats us. They're still created in the image of God. That's how the Christian story can bring about a shalom into the world around us. The second is this. Not only is the image of God key, we recognize that we are saved as a gift from God. That our salvation is not we are better than somebody else. Some time ago, there was this guy who came and we had an interaction. He was a friend of a friend again. And he came to this building and again, I was introduced, oh, this is the pastor. And immediately, he kind of froze. And then he said, oh, I'm very sorry, I'm a sinner, And I said, and so am I. Because it's true, I'm not better. But somewhere along the way, I heard this message that there is a God who gives a gift of grace, of his favor, of his acceptance. And I said yes. That's the only difference. That's the only difference. And if you and I understand that we're saved by grace, then there is no pride. There is no we are better than. There is no superiority. There is a humility. Because it is him and him alone who is great. It is he and he alone who is good. It is he alone who saves us. And we recognize that the land at the foot of the cross is flat. There is no hierarchy because we're all saved by the grace and the favor of Jesus. And we're not called to tolerate. We're called to love our enemies and forgive others. And that's why the Christian story is the hope that will bring shalom and peace into a world that can be pluralistic, can be different, even to people who disagree. We can know how to walk with them because we are called to love them. We're called to forgive them. And that is the ethics of God for us as his people. Why? Because we have a king who became a suffering servant. Because we have a God who has all power and all authority, but walked with abject humility. And in that, as he gave his spirit to his church, we walk with that same heart and that same mindset. That's what can bring a lasting transformation to the world around us. There is no better story than the Christian story. And all of it hinges on the person of Jesus. So we have to ask the question, who really is Jesus? Is he just another person? Is he a good teacher? Is he a moralist? Or is he really the Son of God? Next week, we'll answer this question. But today, as we wrap this up, what about you? What do you do with what you've heard today? Maybe for some of you, this is going to be things you need to think about as you seek and desire to find out more about this God. But maybe for some of you today's the day where you need to say, I'm going to put aside every other gods. I'm not going to be the 50% that believe and pray with every other God. There is not every way. There is only one way. And today you're going to decide that I'm going to let go of everything else and I'm going to trust this invitation from a good God who sacrificed his love and said, I want to show you a different way to bring hope and peace into the world around us. What are you going to do? 3 very simple things. One is, will you acknowledge your sin? Will you acknowledge that your goodness is not sufficient to merit his goodness? And you can try, and maybe many of you try to be good, you try to be right, you try to treat your wife proper, you try to treat your kids good, and suddenly you blow it and you feel, I can't be good. Would you acknowledge your sin? And then would you accept his acceptance? Would you accept that you are accepted because he is good, and it doesn't matter what you have done, but he is good? And out of his goodness, he says, I already accept you because the price has already been paid. That's A. B, would you then believe in Jesus? Would you believe that he has done the work and his grade has been accepted? And his grade is good enough with God the Father. And you and I can hop on with what his work has completed? Would you believe in Jesus today? And maybe that's going to require you to break away from your past, to let go from every other way of thinking, every other idol or thing that you're following. Because there are many Christians today who say, I believe in Jesus, but still will walk in superstition. Oh, must do this, must do this, must do this. There is no other way. Jesus alone. And maybe some of us, it's not just even Jesus, it's Jesus and my goodness. So I still need my goodness to save me. And you want to get rid of that as well. Your self-righteousness is not going to do it. Break away from your past. Let Jesus rescue you. And when Jesus rescues you, you can rest in his rescue, because his hands are enough to take us and to hold us. Don't trust your ability to save yourself. And the third is, would you then confess him as Lord? One Lord, one God. There's only one that you will choose to follow. And if this is true, then will you carry out his will? Will you live out the reality that you have a master, you have a Lord, you have a leader, you have a boss, and he's good, and he tells you what he needs you to do, and you say, yes, sir. What are you going to do today with this message? And if all of this settles in your heart, then would you and I go and tell people there is a different way? Yes, Christianity is exclusive, but so is everything else. But this exclusive message is a message of life-giving welcome and invitation for everybody, that we can live in a very different way. Would you close your eyes and would you bow your heads? Dear God, I don't know where this lands, and I don't know where this lands with each one of us. But Holy Spirit, would you touch our people right now? Would you stir their hearts? Would you mess with their thinking? Would you do to them what you did to me and show yourself as the true God? Would you open eyes? And would you give us the courage to follow after that and say, okay, God, I've wrestled and I've struggled, but today I surrender. I break away from the past. I'm not going to have any other thing that I'm trusting or relying on. I trust you. You are the way. You are the truth. You are my life. And so I receive that in my life today. But God, give each one of us courage to take the next step. For those of us who this is settled, may we have the courage to know how to tell people this good news. We pray this in Jesus' name.